Now to the other major headline around the world, the death of a music legend and his secret in the end. David Bowie had been quietly battling cancer. His final album released just days ago, and the message he left behind. ABC's David Wright tonight on Bowie's battle these last 18 months.
Having styled himself like a pop star from another planet, today David Bowie went back to the mothership. Diagnosed with cancer 18 months ago, he'd kept it private. Today in LA, New York, and London, fans are in shock, paying tribute and grieving.
I just loved his music, I loved him.
He was born David Jones and took the stage name Bowie because the Davy Jones of the Monkees got there first. His first big hit, Space Oddity.
This is ground control to Major Tom.
Inspired by the Apollo space program. Influenced by Andy Warhol, Bowie came up with the concept for Ziggy Stardust, a rock band from outer space. That otherworldly, androgynous look, positioning him as the outsider.
Now Ziggy play guitar.
I felt really comfortable going on stage as somebody else. And it seemed a rational decision to keep on doing that.
Like his anthem Changes, Bowie was famously hard to pin down. His image and his music constantly changing. That chameleon persona in turn inspired generations of performers, from Kiss to Kanye to Lady Gaga. Today, Madonna posted, "David Bowie changed the course of my life forever." Bowie co-wrote Fame with John Lennon. And Under Pressure with Freddie Mercury of Queen. Today, Mick Jagger tweeted this picture, calling Bowie an inspiration and a true original. His final album, number 26, released just last week. The songs and videos recorded while Bowie was fighting his mysterious illness.
Look up here, I'm in heaven.
This song, Lazarus, in retrospect, sounds like goodbye. The song now rising up the charts after Bowie is gone. David Wright, ABC News, New York.
David Wright on the loss of a music legend tonight. David, thank you.
Right then guys, I've never done one of these before. I'm having to use the mic and I'm having to use my phone because my mic's decided it doesn't work on the laptop. There will be a mic coming soon. But this is quite intriguing. The day after David Bowie died, a gentleman called Jack Stevens, there he is, look, went onto the news and gave a tribute to the death of David Bowie. Well, there's David Bowie, there's Jack Stevens. There's David Bowie next to Jack Stevens. Is it me, or is this guy extremely similar? Extremely similar. Well, I've got the footage of him on the news, and one of the things I'd like to point out is how constant it glitches. It's always glitching. Now I'll play the footage for you, and after that we'll have a look at what he says. This company, Fortress Records, I think you'll be in for quite a surprise.
Now, as I promised, we'll talk now more about David Bowie and his influence. Let's bring in Jack Stephen. He is director of Fortune Music.
It's actually Fortress Music.
Fortress Music.
Yes.
Do beg your pardon,
never
Jack.
mind.
Fortress Music and worked as in the music industry as an executive in the Bowie era, and also Bowie's fashion sense we're going to talk about as well. It's influenced the era. And Lizzie Zita, fashion stylist, is with. Welcome to you both. Apologies again,
No
Jack.
problem.
I mean, but perhaps first sum up how you felt this morning when you heard this news.
I was just saying earlier that I actually felt that part of me had died. I mean, I have to say that's how much an influence he is, I think, to me and to thousands and millions of people around the world. And strangely, I'm surprised. I sort of lived through John Lennon's death, Elvis's death, and sadly, this one's affected me more than any other. I mean, it's a very strange thing because I think with him, he was probably the first complete artist where he was involved in every single area of his career, whether it's photography, fashion, whether it was film, whether it was poetry, whether it was live work where he was very theatrical. I mean, his vocal influence, a lot of people don't know this, came from Anthony Newley, who of course was a musical artist. So I find it very, very sad today.
People today talking about how he reinvented himself, how he went with the times, but he led the times in so many aspects through the 70s, 80s, 90s.
He wasn't frightened of change, and so to him every album was a different persona, and so he loved doing that. So at one point he had Ziggy Stardust, next point he had Ed Insane. And he wasn't frightened of plagiarism either. I mean, he used, for example, the hunky dory photograph on the album was actually based on Marlene Dietrich, and so he wasn't frightened where he did, where he used his influence from. I mean, he was hugely influential with me because I was A&R at RCA when he was sort of to the tail end of that. And I signed a band there called the Eurythmics, which I was having terrible problems with. I mean, really, well, nobody liked them at the label. I mean, promotion didn't like them, press didn't like them. I mean, nobody did. My boss didn't really like them. He kept telling me that they were weird. And there was an artist liaison guy there called Tony McGrogan who sort of came up to my office, grabbed me and said, look, Bowie wants to meet up with you. Bring the tapes. So I always remember this, I brought The Walk and Love is a Stranger. And I sat with him and I played them to him and he thought they were absolutely fantastic. And then, and then his words to me were very much, if you believe in it, fight for it. Because I have, I mean, that's what he said to me. And so I did, and it became hugely successful. And when the album went top 5, I got a telegram from him saying, thank God there's finally an A&R man with ears at RCA. Shame I've gone to EMI.
Fine. We'll talk about him as a man, because actually showing that he was funny.
He was very funny, yeah.
Lizzie, the influence on your side of your profession, I mean, incredible what
Enormous.
he did and how his look evolved, and not just the fashion, the makeup, the hair, and the influence that, I guess it was all down to him, was it? Or did he have a team of designers?
No, he didn't. I mean, no doubt he took ideas from various people, as Jack has said. But what I love about him is that he was such a true creative. He was a real innovator, and he didn't give a damn. He was a true original, and he changed all the time his different looks throughout the ages. Just when you think, oh well, we've got a grip on that, he'd completely change again and do something totally different. He would completely pare it down, cut it back, make it black and white. So yeah, he was an amazing guy.
And for so long through the career, gender neutral.
Yes, he was. Initially, he was gender neutral. He was one of the first men, aside from Mick Jagger, to wear a dress. That was early on. That caused complete controversy at the time. Now we're just like, oh, well, guys in a dress is not, but at the time it was very groundbreaking. It was very, very brave of him to do so. Then he went on to his androgynous stage and Ziggy Stardust and all the stuff that we know so well. And after that, he decided that he was going to pare things down and go for, very simple looks, black trousers, white shirt, very, very simple, all the time changing. Just when you think that you had him, he'd move in a completely different direction.
Jack, do you think he was a happy man? You've clearly shown us that he was a funny man, or could be funny.
The times that I met him, yes. I mean, what was there not to be happy? I mean,
the pressure?
Well, the pressure maybe, but I mean, he was able to express himself in a way that most artists can't. one of the most beautiful wives in the world. I mean, you know, it's just sort of, you know, I mean, what do you know?
What's not to like?
What's not to like? And also, you know, he had such a grasp on technology, even when he got ill. You know, I mean, I heard that he was having heart trouble and stuff. But then he sort of digitally released an album that went to #1 in the UK charts. I mean, you know, so I think if I was Bowie and I look back at my career, I'd be pretty, you know, happy about what I've achieved. It wasn't easy for him, I have to tell you. I mean, he fought every single step of the way. I mean, I know the American side was really hard because he was furious that none of his records really broke big in America. And so he really got sort of annoyed and actually just packed up, went to America, and then did the Diamond Dogs tour where he booked 3 theatres. I mean, I think one in Philadelphia, Radio City, and I think the other one was I think it was the Universal tour. I can't remember, it was the Universal thing. And he booked them himself, filmed it, and he said, right, I'm breaking America alone. I don't care about you, RCA, and
I mean, interestingly, even if in your youth or even now anyone wasn't into Bowie, today will show you that the people that you were into or are into have been terribly influenced by what he did. I mean, he had such an impact on so many layers of the music industry.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But also, you see, he was a great spotter of talent. I mean, you know, he was the first person to, you know, from the UK as a European artist who sort of got into the whole Velvet Underground scene. You know, I mean, he loved all of that. Iggy Pop and the Stooges. You know, he's the first person to experiment with sort of dark computer sounds in terms of his, you know, albums like Low and Lodger, which he did in Berlin with Tony Visconti and Brian Eno. You know, Let's Dance, I mean, that was a complete surprise, you know, working with Nile Rodgers. I mean, it was almost a disco record. I mean, it's phenomenal. You know, even Tin Man, which, you know, wasn't very popular, but I always kind of liked it because it was like him going, you know, I like, you know, white trash rock and I'm going to play it, and you know, that's it. I was going to swear then. God.
Behave.
But he was also great at spotting fashion talent. He picked up on a young designer called Yamamoto, who then went on to design those really outlandish costumes for stage, very theatrical, very strong. And he also later picked up on Alexander McQueen, who designed him a frock coat. This was before Alexander McQueen was really huge. And he designed this frock coat for him, complete with cigarette burns everywhere, that was incredibly iconic. So I think he was a highly intelligent, erudite man, and he was a visionary who could pick up all these influences before they started hitting the mainstream, and he was always true to himself.
And all of those things live on in the exhibition that
yes,
there is
of course,
which is now touring the world
and has been hugely successful.
Do you have a favourite look, a favourite time of David Bowie?
Oh, that's so hard. I mean, I really quite fancied him when he was doing the Soul Boy look, and it was all suits and slick back dark hair. He looked gorgeous then, but it's got to be Ziggy Stardust. That's the most iconic, with a really outlandish makeup. And you know, every time a woman applies a glittery eyeshadow, every time the influence is right there, that's David Bowie.
Yeah, and this is really hard. Maybe you can't answer it, but do you have a favourite song?
Oh, it's impossible. We're talking earlier. The one song that I was probably the most impressed with, which was really obscure, was that you went live on a Bing Crosby show in America and did Little Drummer Boy.
Yes.
And to this day, I mean, the courage of the man to do that, because Bing Crosby is regarded as one of the most purest singers in the world. And I think just for the fact that he had the courage to do that, I think that's one of my favourite tunes of his.
Will he be looked back on as the proper rock and roll star? I mean, did he live the rock and roll lifestyle?
Yeah, he did in his early days, absolutely.
In his early days.
You know, but I mean, you know, but he is the man that developed modern day music, the approach to modern day music, where you have to really understand every facet of media. I mean, he was very much like that. And, you know, but he was a very funny man. He used to make me laugh.
And we're all of a certain age, but you believe that things that he pioneered live on today, that actually his influence is still there.
They definitely do. In the cab coming down, I was thinking, OK, influences of David Bowie, flat caps, V-neck play suits, bright socks, very outlandish prints, suits for men. You see them on the high street all the time in pastel colours. He was a pioneer of all of this at a time when they were outrageous, when men's fashion was like, well, you might as well look at paint drying, it was so boring. So yeah, he was a one-off. And very contemplative as well. He went off to Berlin for quite a while to sort of go inward, to read poetry. He got involved with the art scene there, and he completely changed his look. And he went from very flamboyant to really low-key.
Just finally then, Jack, Black Star. I mean,
Right.
do you see it how people are seeing it today, that this is his goodbye, that this was all pre-planned?
I think it is his goodbye, but I don't think he'll ever be forgotten.
Lovely to talk to you both, Jack Stephen and Lizzie Zita. Thank you both.
Okay,
Thank you too.
Right then, so Fortress Records, let's have a look into Fortress Records, shall we? Now this is the .gov website, which is sworn by for everything just lately. Well, here we go, Fortress Records. So they're a limited company, that's company house. Oh, dissolved on 26th of September 2017. When did they start? So if they dissolved then, when did they start? Incorporated on the 1st of April 2016. So I guess that's a bit of an April Fool's for us all. Very strange. Very strange. So the question is, did David Bowie leave us and die? Or did he just become Jack Stevens? The mind boggles. Then, the New York Post, 2016, January of 2016. Right, here we go. At the time, fans were freaked out. Apparently as a lookalike appears to talk about David Bowie. Well, that lookalike just happened to be what we're talking about, Jack Stevens on the news. Now, another thing is Jack Stevens talks about this company called Fortress Records. Now, Fortress Records, bear with me, has a YouTube page. Type it in, have a look. Right, now let's have a look at Fortress Records. Fortress Records has got 34 subscribers. Not many records. How many videos have they got? They've got 34 subscribers. And that's it. So, Jack Stevens has got a more apparently massive record company whose YouTube account has got, oh, sorry for the blurriness, 34 subscribers, and he's got 98 views on that one in 11 years. 100 and, look at that, 169. So the question is, who is Jack Stevens?